Welcome into another edition of the Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts with my guy, my partner, Gordon Wittenmeyer, who's on the ground in Arizona. I'm David Kaplan. All right, Gordon, let's get into a few things. First, a little bit of housekeeping. We will have a brand new column from Gordon on our website, thecapman.com. Just go to thecapman.com, and his first one will probably be posted late tonight, and we'll have those from spring training on, as Gordon has tremendous access as he covers the National League, the Reds, the Cubs, and everything else going on in the Cactus League. Okay, that said, Gordon, I am not happy today. I'm happy because the four greatest words in sports are pitchers and catchers report. You're in the sunshine. I see the blue sky. It's great. It's 47 here. I'm outside. It's beautiful. Great. I'm furious that as of today, my team, my favorite baseball team, is worse on paper than it was a year ago. I kept saying to you, relax. They're not at spring training yet. Relax. It's not opening day yet. I know it's not opening day yet. I still think they're going to sign somebody. But to go to camp, the next thing I'm going to hear is 3 weeks from now, yeah, we got Cody Bellinger back on a 1-year deal with 2 option years. Oh, and by the way, he tweaked his oblique because he missed 3 weeks of spring training. Either you're in or you're out. This team is good enough to win that freaking division, and I think it's ridiculous, whether Cody's coming or not, that this is what I'm dealing with. Mastroboni and Madrigal are my starting third baseman.
I'm with you, man. You know I've been saying this, and here we are. Pitchers and catchers report. Jed Hoyer, Carter Hawkins, Craig Counsell met with the media on Wednesday, and a month after saying that his winter was in the 4th or 5th inning, leading everybody to say, well, that means Cody Bellinger's coming or somebody else significant. Jed Hoyer on Wednesday, on day one, meeting the media in spring training, said, we're getting awfully, he said, the closer is warming up at this point. They haven't done anything in that span.
That means it's like the bottom of the 7th, top of the 8th, whatever it is. Doesn't mean you can't get a deal done, but Gordon.
But it means you better be down the road on negotiations with somebody specific that you're talking about.
So I talked to a couple of guys over the last 2 days in the game who said, don't be shocked if Bellinger ends up getting like a Correa deal or Chapman does, where they sign 1 year, really good money, 2 option years at their option. So it could be a 3-year deal. So they protect themselves if there's injury. The Cubs take that risk and they can opt out. If they have a monster year, see you later, out. And the Cubs might be happy with that because they may feel Matt Shaw is coming, Pete Crow Armstrong is close, Michael Busch, whoever it is. So my question is, if you're willing to go down that road, how long are you willing to wait before you finally get a freaking deal done? Because if you tell me they're going to sign March 11th, I'm going to be pissed off.
You mean how late are you willing to go if you're the Cubs or if you're Cody Bellinger?
If I'm the Cubs and if I'm Cody Bellinger.
Well, those are legit questions on both sides. I mean, with the Cubs, if I'm getting a bargain on a guy that I know what he is, and the Cubs should know better than anybody right now what he is and how he fits their roster, then I don't care. As long as I think there's time for him to get ready for the season, the time really doesn't matter. And we're so early in the process in February now that really you could take it into March and a hitter could be ready for the opener for sure. So I'm not worried from the Cubs standpoint on a timeline on that. But if I'm Cody Bellinger, I'm sweating my butt off right now because I know that my hopes and dreams of that mega deal is probably not happening if we're at this point because we're not even, other than the Cubs, we're not even hearing teams. And the only thing we're hearing about the Cubs is that he's overpriced as it stands. So if I'm Cody Bellinger, I tell you what, that Carlos Correa deal that you're talking about, the thing about that deal is, how much does Cody Bellinger actually get out of that deal? And here's what I mean by that. He took a pillow contract last winter.
Yeah, $17 million.
He produced well enough to win Comeback Player of the Year and convince a lot of people that, okay, he's not washed up. He's not done. He's got a lot left in the tank. $200+ million worth left in the tank. Well, obviously that's the question that's keeping him on the market. But we know he's got something there. We know the ability is still there. But if he had taken that deal last year, you would have assumed he would opt out for this winter.
Correct.
And make himself a free agent like he's been. He couldn't, you would really have to be, you would expect a lot. It's too much to ask to be saying that he coulda, woulda, shoulda had a better year than he had last year. So he has as good as he could have hoped, a really nice bounce back, and he's still lingering on the market all the way into spring training as he tries to get that long-term mega deal. So you get him for a 3-year deal with 2 opt-outs. That's a 3-year deal if you're the club. I mean, why would he necessarily opt out? Even if he has an okay year, a pretty good year, there's no reason to think that his market is suddenly going to get better as he's a year older and 2 years older.
Okay, so that was my point to you. A 3-year Carlos Correa-style deal protects Cody, at least, with 3 guaranteed years of money if his health goes awry or his performance. The Cubs could probably swallow 3. All right, 3 years, we'll deal with it. But if it's 1 year and he balls out, they either got to sign him or he's going back on the market. My question is this a clear shot at Scott Boras by all of Major League Baseball going, you're not getting to my owner anymore? No more. Because that's his MO. He goes around the team president, the GM, gets to the owner and says, you and I, let's do a deal.
Yeah, and some of the owners were talking and it worked for some teams. I mean, Philadelphia was one of those owners. They signed Bryce Harper, and they've signed a handful. They brought in Castellanos too. That's another one of his clients. And they wind up with this team that's been to the World Series and came close again. So it's kind of worked for them. But I don't know if you saw the Athletic story that I don't know if Ken Rosenthal did it, but he looked at the Dodgers and the Braves. Between those two teams, we're talking about teams that won the 2020 and 2021 World Series that are in the playoffs every year. People are drooling over that roster that Atlanta has, not to mention the high-level guys that the Dodgers have. One Boras client between those two teams. And the Dodgers in particular have a history over the years of quite a few Boras clients. Now, I don't think the Dodgers are, maybe the Braves are. I don't think the Dodgers have suddenly changed policy and said, we're not dealing with Scott Boras. I think that just happened, but maybe the Braves are. And by the way, even if it's just organic, you look at the success those two teams have kind of in two different ways, a little bit. I mean, there's some similarities, but mostly different methodology. They've got a lot of success, and we see teams this is the Reds complex behind me. That team's, got rid of a lot of its higher priced guys, veterans in recent years, and they went all youth, and they've got a very exciting young core. Brewers have done that for years. The Cubs are doing it now, as shitty as that is for a lot of the fans, in the short term for sure. But there might be a new dynamic in play already just across the board. We really see the commissioner's office. It's like I talked about on the last podcast or the one before that, where you brought up collusion, and there is a collusive process going on here, whether it's bona fide legal collusion or not. And it is creating an environment that would almost by definition make it harder for Boras if he's got a lot of guys in one market like he does this year.
So as you look at where this Cubs team is right now today, to say that they can be at the level they were a year ago, and Vegas has them at 84.5 wins, which is, a win and a half more than they had last year. Vegas is banking on the Craig Counsell effect, A. B, some of the young players performing better than they did in a full season of Seiya Suzuki and the addition of Imanaga to the rotation. I'll argue with you, and I root for him. I go to games. I love that team. I can't wait for opening day. It's my favorite sport. I don't think they're as good on paper today. They are not as good a team as they were a year ago, and I think it's bullshit if this is the club you break camp with. Again, we may be doing an emergency podcast tomorrow going, hey, they got Bellinger or Chapman or whoever, but right now, that's a freaking ATM machine at the corner of Clark and Addison, and to not have one of these guys on your roster, that's bullshit.
Thank you, Cap. Thank you for speaking my language for once. And also thank you for teasing my column that's going to show up on the website in the next 12 hours or so. Yeah, you're right. And as a fan, you have every right in the world to be upset. And you get into the games for free.
Yeah.
The people that pay.
I actually buy tickets occasionally. Yeah, but I have a credential. That's true.
You wait until they tank the team like they have the last few years and then go scoop up those cheap seats?
I did not have a problem that they traded Bryant and Rizzo and all the guys.
All I'm talking about is you buy your ticket when the price is depressed on the secondary market.
I go whenever. I like being there. My son is a diehard. But I met my wife at freaking Wrigley. That all said, now that you've tanked it a second time, torn it apart, and you built this thing back up, you have a freaking responsibility to whether it's me or the guy right next door who is a Cubs fan who goes, wow, you had a pretty decent year last year. If you'd have bought some goddamn pitching, you might have knocked out the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you might have had a chance to make a run into who knows where in the postseason. I think it's bullshit that this winter you have not gone out and added enough to feel like you're the heavyweight in the division. And financially, you are the behemoth.
No question about it. And it doesn't mean necessarily what you're saying doesn't mean the fact that I agree with that. It doesn't mean I'm saying you have to sign one of these Boris guys that are still out there. And I know your feelings on this because you brought it up before. This isn't the guy you wanted. But if your idea is that the Bushes of the world and the PCAs of the world and the Shaws of the world are massive parts of your future lineup, then maybe Bush, because he's already shown a little bit more, he's a little further along. There's different circumstances there. But these other guys, they haven't shown you a damn thing. You don't know what you can count on when, and you owe it to your fans.
Yes.
When you're this close, so don't necessarily go out and get a Boris Klein on an 8-year deal, but you could have definitely competed for and probably signed Jeimer Candelario, and he may not be a world beater. He flirted with all-star credentials in recent seasons. He's got some pop. He's a switch hitter. He can handle a couple of corner infield spots for you. You have a guy like that. He got a 3-year, $45 million deal from the Reds. You could certainly handle that without flinching. You could handle a little more of that just to beat him for him. And then what you have is a guy that can play this spot for you. That's a spot of need right now. And, okay, if he pulls a hamstring, you got a couple guys that can fill in. And eventually your big stud that's coming up through the system can supplant him. And when he does, this guy can DH for you. He can rotate through first base. He can do a number of things for you.
Okay,
and it's only 3 years.
But why not 1-year deal with Justin Turner? Again,
okay.
I haven't evaluated Justin Turner. I know he had a pretty solid year for a 39-year-old last year.
I think we're talking about the same thing. I think we're talking about...
There's a 1-year commitment. If it doesn't work out, see you later. Thanks for coming. You got more money than God. I don't care what he got paid, $15 million or whatever. That is tip money to the Chicago Cubs.
You're right. And that would be one way to do it, assuming that the reports on him come in good. I don't know if they did. He's older than Candelario is.
That's just one example.
Right. So either way you go, either one of those examples, assuming that those guys' scouting reports play out, absolutely. If you're the Cubs, if you're thinking the way Jed Hoyer talked today, and by today I mean Wednesday, when he met with the media for the first time this spring and talked about he thinks there's a a core of young veterans and young other players coming that he thinks can take strides forward. That's what he's counting on to get better. That's not enough.
Where's your safety net is my question to Jed.
Right.
Jed, that's great. I'm glad.
Like last year, they had Hosmer come in. Mervis was a guy that was supposed to. They didn't. Maybe Mervis becomes something going forward. Fine. But my point is on this that like Mastroboni and Wisdom, we know what they are. Basically, we've seen what they are. Madrigal. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting.
Correct.
And it's not a safety net. These are role players. They can do things for you. If your roster's deep enough, they can play a depth role for you.
That's what bothers me, that there is no safety net where you go, hey, if Matt Shaw gets here, we'll eat the freaking money. I don't care. If he comes up and we go, right. That dude's every day.
If he comes up and does that, you're paying him the minimum for $20 million worth of productivity if he's that guy. So who cares who you cut to get that?
Exactly right. And that's my problem. And again, Jed may listen to this because he does and go, I just signed Cody Bellinger for 1 year at blah, 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 or Matt Chapman for 1 year. Who had the last laugh? Great. But you can't bank on that. So my question is, you got more money. Why don't you have some freaking veteran safety nets just so you can look at your team and go, if he doesn't come, great. If the young kid doesn't play well, we're okay. Yeah, it's a mentality, Gordon. It's a mentality.
You're right. And this is starting to sound a lot more as we get further away from the way that David Ross was kicked to the curb. It's starting to sound a lot more like maybe there was some more headbutting than we knew about going on there. We know what David Ross has said about prospects. Same thing I say about prospects. They call them prospects for a reason. And when you're
because they've never done it.
And this is a guy who was a winner as a player. He knows the difference because he was on some small market teams, big market teams, some winners, some teams that weren't very good. He knows the difference. He's gravitated toward a lot of very, the Lackeys of the world, the John Lessers of the world, the guys that are career-winning players, championship players. He knows what it looks like. He's also been around where young players have come up. I would trust David Ross's instincts. So I don't think he was wrong. Maybe he did. So he didn't play these guys as much as the front office wanted, and maybe they thought there was more to get out of some of these guys. That might wind up being true. But if this is your gambit going into this season, we're going to get rid of the guy that wouldn't play the young guys. We're going to bring in a guy that always has managed teams that bring in young guys and expect them to play a lot, and he knows how to manage them. And because of that, we're going to get better with our young guys, our prospects, and our guys that have been around for a couple of years. And that's going to make the difference of 5 games. All right. What if they don't pan out? What if you don't have an answer for center field?
Agreed. I have this fear.
There's no excuse for it as a front office when you're the Chicago freaking Cubs.
I have this fear that Sunday Night Baseball, first game of the year, is the Cubs and the defending world champion Texas Rangers. And it will be whoever's doing the game. I don't know, Joe Davis or whoever is on the call. It's somebody from ESPN, Carl Ravitch. And it'll be like, let's look at the lineup for the Cubs. At first, it's Mike Bush. At second, Nico Horner. Solid. At short, Dansby Swanson. Solid. No stars yet. At third, Miles Mastroboni. The outfield, Happ, Tauchman, and Suzuki with what's his name? Yan Gomes catching and Justin Steele pitching. That ain't a team trying to freaking win.
If that's your opening day lineup, you just finished third before the season started.
Right.
And you talk about Bush. I've talked to some people over there, and the feeling is this guy's a left-handed bat that can help fill a void. What if he's just okay? What if he's not? What if playing every day and all the physical and the mental wear that comes with that? What if that doesn't pan out? It turn into a big season for him. What if he's just okay? Or what if he just has a learning curve because of his experience level and becomes a great player a couple of years from now? they're in position now, Cap. And when you lose a guy like Bellinger with his left-handed production and you don't replace it on the roster with something you can bank on, that's dereliction of the front office. And I just don't know, what are they just counting on a crappy division that they're going to hang in there and do something at the trade deadline, or sign one of these free agents late because they're going to be desperate once the season starts and they don't have deals? I don't know. How'd that work out with Craig Kimbrell? I mean, come on. I just see so many holes in this. If this is a plan of any kind, I see a multi-year landscape that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah,
but it also
agreed.
It also counts on a sequence happening.
What did Theo say? Every season is sacred.
Right. Here's the other thing Theo said, that development's not linear.
Correct.
And if this is a multi-year thought and a plan, they're counting on a certain amount of this to be linear.
Gordon, I would have had no problem if Jed had come out and said, look, we are going to give our young kids a chance. You may not like that, but that's what we're going to do. That is not the way this offseason was portrayed 4 months ago. It was, hey, man, the Cubs are going to be heavyweights in the lobby. The Cubs are this, the Cubs are that. They have been anything but.
And they're coming off seasons where they signed a $75 million pitcher 2 years ago in Stroman. They signed a $75 million outfield in Suzuki that same offseason. They got an extension done with Happ last year. They got they brought in Imanaga on $53 million. Tyone last year, I'm sorry, $68 million. And Swanson last year for $177. They've put pieces in place that by definition of their contracts are, quote, bankable pieces. And they got very, very close last year. You know, Hoyer said it again Wednesday that he thought that was a team that should be in the playoffs. Clearly, he thinks somebody screwed up. And the evidence suggests he thinks that's David Ross. There's no guarantees that the guys that had good years last year are still going to have good years this year.
If he truly believes that, and I like Jed very much, I'm glad he's our president. But if he truly believes what he was saying today, then why in the F did he not add more pitching at the deadline if he thought, hey, man, we can get to the playoffs? Because Michael Rucker and who's the other guy? Mark Leiter, those guys were not the answer to run down teams to get to the postseason.
No question. And again, I keep going to the Reds. I know a little bit about the Reds. The Cubs were in on Sam Moll, the left-hander who was lights out, left-hand reliever who was lights out for the Reds down the stretch last year and helped save their bullpen, even though they finished a game behind the Cubs. They were in on him, and they were surprised they didn't get him. And so how do you let that happen, right? How do you so right. Something's wrong in the something, whether it's negotiating or targeting certain free agents or negotiating some of these trades or being unwilling to do some things. Man, I'm not sure what all this plan is, but there seems to be some scapegoating going on. And I tell you what, I've seen on Twitter a lot of people asking, should Jed's job be on the line? I said it should be last year. Like if he was putting Rossi's job on the line, and then when he whacked Ross, and go back again to what he said about Ross coming out of the season. I mean, if you're going to go with young guys, he didn't say that's what he's doing. If Rossi's the problem, he sure as hell didn't say that when the season ended. And I know he still doesn't know if he's getting counsel at that point. But there's a lot of kind of the results, the outcomes of some of the practices has a lot of fly by its ass look to it.
Yeah, I don't believe Jed's job should be on the line. I've told you, I think he's got them in a very healthy place. If you take an eye on 25, 26, 27, like, wow, if I'm buying a stock and I'm holding it, that stock is going to appreciate.
Baseball guys out there, I like him personally, but he at the job he's got, he ain't doing it. Not so far. Maybe he's the classic guy that's one spot above where his wheelhouse is. I don't know, He was a terrific second to Theo. So far, I'm not. He's about to go 0 for 4 in postseason appearances.
Well, again, if you're buying a stock and you're doing all your analytics and you're looking at the newsletters, Chicago Cubs, if I can hold that for 3 years, wow, I think I could really, may not have Amazon, but I might have a stock that can make some real money on. Fine.
The problem is,
what about the 2024 season?
Well, not only that, but when you make a comparison like that, the problem is the shelf life is so volatile in sports.
You don't know what's coming around the corner.
When you're there, when you have what you know, when you have a group that you know can do something close, you're obligated as an organization to try to put the pieces with it to win. Because if you say, well, I've got these pieces and in 2 years we'll be ready to do it, another year and we'll be ready to do it, another year, those pieces are going to be evaluated differently. They're going to look different. They're going to have different value to them. And that's just the way it is. So when you talk about stock, the company, the entire company might be different, right? The pieces within the company might be different at that point.
Correct. You're right. All right. Enjoy the weather.
Hey, what about our fan questions? Our new.
We did. We had a fan question. I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah.
So we've had multiple fans want to know why the Cubs don't take a swing at Trevor Bauer, who has now been cleared by MLB, and he can sign with a team. No one has touched him with a 10-foot ball. For me, no thank you. I heard he was despised in Cleveland by his teammates, Cincinnati, and the Dodgers went to management and said, I don't care if you got to give that guy $200 million to buy him out. Get him out of our locker room. Bad guy. So I don't care if he throws 150 miles an hour. No thank you.
If nobody wants to believe you and your reporting on that, Cap, all you have to know from the public information is the Dodgers paid him a boatload of money to not pitch for them.
Correct.
Once all this stuff came out. And I talked to the Reds head of baseball here. The Reds had him during his Cy Young year.
Yeah. And
I asked very early in the offseason if you'd have interest in bringing him back because he wasn't going to cost anything. It was a flat no. And that was public. Like it was, I got a story with his quote on that. So the point being that just the things we know that's publicly available to us, it kind of tells the story.
He's a vile human being. So
and let's, if you want to say, if he wants to use the word exonerated or he didn't get taken to trial and convicted of anything, that's fine. But even if you take all the stuff that got him suspended for out of the picture, I don't know if you remember when Terry Francona went to take him out of the game, he turned around and threw a ball over the fence.
He's not the influence you want on your team.
If nothing else, I mean, to be generous, he's a smart guy. He's definitely a smart guy. I've talked to him, and he's able to. I mean, he's terrific at breaking stuff down in baseball, but he's a little offbeat. I mean, that's probably generous way to put it. So yeah, he's not going to come in and there's no way he's going to be good for the room at the outset. You have to even consider it. You have to have about the strongest clubhouse in the game, just to even consider it, and then good luck.
Completely agree. And if you have a question you'd like Gordon and I to answer, you could tweet at GWMLB or me at TheCapman, and then go to our website, thecapman.com. Gordon will have a column up there later tonight, Wednesday night. So late tonight in the morning, it will be edited and up, and we'll get your perspectives. You can post your comments there as well.
Wait a minute. Who's my editor? Is that you?
This guy right here.
Oh, good Lord. I'm definitely filing that while you're asleep.
Take that. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk. And if something breaks, emergency podcast in the middle of the night.
I'll be there.
All right. I'll see you.
All right.
Take that. All right. That's my guy, Gordon Wittenmeyer. That is a wrap for this edition of the Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel. For Gordon, for our staff, have a great rest of your night. Appreciate you greatly. Send those questions in. Take that.